What's up? Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Zach. This is my beautiful wife, Montana. You are fully getting the post-kids in bed fashion tonight. As we have.
This is what we always wear.
This is not what I always wear.
This is what I always wear. I'm sorry Zach was dressing out for you.
So as we have wrapped up, we've been moving stuff around our house and selling some stuff on Facebook. So if you need some kids' clothes or kids' accoutrements.
Yes. Our child's no longer a baby, so you're getting of all the baby stuff.
We've got some for sale for you, so make sure you check out our Facebook page. As we are selling some of that stuff. So we've had a busy weekend, and we were wrapping it up with a conversation with you all.
Yes.
And Montana's decided that
Why is it Montana
need
decided?
a discussion around focus on communication.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that I know is hard, especially in an early marriage, is learning how to communicate. And I think there's things that we did wrong, that we could have been better. I think there's still things that we, aren't the best at when it comes to communication. But just kind of talking through, when a woman says one thing, what does a man think it means and what does a woman think it means, and then vice versa, when you say something, what are you really saying without kind of like the underlying, what are we really saying when we say this, and then how
could the solution to this whole conversation just be to say what you mean?
No, because I think that men are also not good at communication either. So I think that we talk through like some of those examples and then how we could better phrase that to help with communication.
I think it's that men communicate very well in specific spaces and about specific things, and I think women are the same way about other stuff. But also, like, the way guys take in information, the way women take information, completely different.
Yeah.
Like, when we do Point Man, we're teaching to just a room full of men, like, it could be earth-shattering something you say to every person in the room, and they will say nothing. Yeah. Like, they will stare at you blank-faced.
They don't really react.
There's zero reaction. They heard it, and it's really funny because we started doing, like, these reaction videos at the end of each night where we grab, like, 3 or 4 guys, and we're like, hey, what did you think of tonight? And they'll say stuff, and you're like, oh, you did hear that. You just sat on your hands when you heard it.
And looked at me.
Yeah. Like, it had nothing to do, but it was the thing that stood out in your mind. And it's like, I think guys, they internalize the information. And I think it's a lot of the thing about the jobs that men do versus the jobs women do, the types of communication required. Like, I think about your dad who's in maintenance and electrical work and stuff. And like, for him, he needs to know what tools he needs to take, how long the job's going to take, all of those types of things. He just needs the information and he needs to go execute on his project. Yeah. And I think a lot of guys fall into that. And so, like, I know in our communication sometimes you'll be like, well, like my least favorite question on the face of the freaking planet is, what do you want for dinner? Give me a calculus equation and let me try to figure it out before I try to figure out what's for dinner. The answer you already know most of the time. You know what you want for dinner.
That is not true. That's not true. I like to hear options. I don't know. It's just that's how my palate works.
But I think that's what we're talking about, though, in communication. Like, for me, I would just be like, what's for dinner? Oh, tacos. Cool. When is it ready? Yeah,
but for me, I'm like, but do you really want tacos, or were you just saying that because you want to end the conversation?
I don't think it matters for most guys.
But I'm saying from a woman's point of view, like, I feel like we're more of the compromising gender than the man. I feel like we compromise a lot more because we just want everything to keep moving, and we don't really like conflict. Not that men do. I don't know. I just feel like that we compromise more because we're just used to it, like with kids and our jobs and things like that. So I think that we want to make sure, at least from my point of view, that you're not just saying something like, well, I don't want you to like, if you really don't want tacos for dinner, like, we don't have to have tacos. Let's just talk about it. Where you're like, I just want this conversation to be over, so let's just have tacos. But then I feel bad because because now you just said tacos, and I don't even know if you really want tacos. Like, I'm saying, that's what goes on in, like, at least this woman's brain and things like that. So I think that we go over some stuff like that. Okay. Our meal one is the worst.
It's the thing
So the one I can think of that I know a lot of women, at least that I've been friends with, do is when you guys like, hey, how's it going? And we go, fine. Fine to a man and fine to a woman means very different. So when I say fine, what do you think it means? Like, if you're like, hey, how was your day? I'm like, oh, it's fine.
That it's just you're indifferent about your day.
Yeah.
It wasn't good, it wasn't bad.
Yeah. So for me, it could have 8 billion things could have happened that day. It could have been a great day. It could have been an awful day. But when I say the day is fine, sorry, I was making sure you didn't catch a moth. When I say it's fine, it's either I don't want to talk about it, so I'm just going to say something that maybe you'll just stop, or I want to talk about it, but yet you don't ask any more questions.
See that, but so I think here we can stop for a second, and that's not communication, though. Like
I agree. I didn't say it was good.
I understand that you have a different feeling about what you've said, but when we're talking about shoring up communication between multiple genders, like the communicator is the one who has the responsibility to get across the point. It's not on the listener to hear it. It's on you to give it.
Yeah.
And so if you say, my day's fine, but you want more questions to be dug into, I think it's on you as the communicator to say, my day was fine, but X happened. And same for the flip side of that. Like if it was fine and there was nothing else to be discussed, like, cool, day's fine. Glad that happened for you. Like, mine was terrible or mine was great.
Yeah, I know that I catch myself doing that. Like if I want to talk about, I guess because most men that I've met, they're not, they don't give you a lot in communication unless unless they start it. Like if you start a conversation with me, you're going to give a lot more. But if I start a conversation, you're like, yeah. Like you don't ask questions to like keep the conversation going, like oh yeah, my day was fine. I should just say, hey, I didn't have a great day, I want to talk about it. And then, but I don't know, we've never done that, like where I'm like, I think I just come in and I say fine, or I just start talking about my day and things like that. So I think it's just because I don't know, it's like I don't want to burden you with my day, but yet I do want to burden you with my day, so I really rather you just ask about my day, then I feel like I'm not burdening you. Do you get that?
I do, but again, I'm putting
more responsibility on you, and then I'm the one that ends up disappointed.
Yes. And I think
women's brains are hard.
I think guys do it on the flip side too, but I think too, like what you do in your day matters. Like I can sympathize with your day more than you can sympathize with mine, just in this scenario. Like you've never worked in the space I work in. Like you have no context. If I say I had to do policy checks for 4 hours, like you're not.
I just tell people you do spreadsheets and insurance.
I know, which is hilarious because
you do. I've seen spreadsheets.
I use them to organize things.
That's fine.
Not what I do for a living. If you work
with a spreadsheet, then you do spreadsheets.
But like you have no context. So for me to explain something bad in my day, like I have to go through the process of being like, this is why this is hard. This is what I had to do with it.
So I guess with men, the hassle isn't worth the conversation.
And I think guys,
which I think could also hurt communication from the guy's point of view, because then you feel like that, like when something explodes at work and then you're like, visibly upset, where you can actually tell. It's like, well, what happened? Like, oh, well, it's this whole big long story. It's like, well, if you had just taken us along on the story, we might have been able to sympathize more and be. Even though like we might not be able to fix it, like we could be better. Because like I know as a mom and a wife, like when and women, like we're fixers. We like to fix things, and not that we can't. If something went wrong at work, that we could actually fix. Like I'm not going to go talk to your boss. I'm going to fix this client or whatever. But we feel completely hopeless in that situation, and I feel like part of it is because we weren't brought along, and so this huge thing explodes, and we're like, do you want a snack? Like, do you want to talk about? No, I don't want to talk about. Like, I don't know. It's just that's how I feel sometimes when I feel like you could have brought me along, and then I might have reacted better in that situation than, well, I don't know how to help because you didn't tell me anything, and just like I don't want to talk about it anymore.
I think in this scenario we're talking about though with like work, it goes back to that like you want to help fix the home front, like. I think whether you believe in gender roles or not, they exist. And like the woman women typically are the ones who are like managing the household.
Yeah.
Whether you have a job or whatever, this is like where your focus is first, is inside of your house. And I think traditionally for men, it's been supporting the house. And so like the burden of support and to succeed at work and to do those things falls to them. And so they very much are focused on that. And so I think whenever you come in, you're like, well, what's wrong with this? Well, a lot of the time, since I work from home primarily, like, if I have a problem, I just keep working. Like I just keep working till it's done. And so you're here and our kids are here and everybody's here. And you're like, well, what can I do to help? Well, you can't do anything to help.
Yeah.
Like I have to just fix this problem on my own. So discussing it, a lot of times not going to change. Like the problem's still the problem. I still have to get it done. I think for guys though, like it's the lack of emotional vulnerability.
Yeah.
That really starts to stagnate conversation. So like we're really struggling with something, guys have to become more comfortable with like, hey, let me open up to my wife. This is my partner. This is someone that I can.
Well, I mean, you know, I think that, like I said, women, at least a lot of women I know and myself, like we like to fix things. We want to fix it. We want to take burdens off of you. And even though, like you said, in this work situation, if we couldn't, but even opening up, like even giving you a sympathetic ear is something that we can do. But if you don't even let us do that, you know, I don't see how you grow in communication with each other. Like you don't grow closer together if it's always one side sharing. You know, you just feel like, well, I'm just dumping all my burdens on him and he never dumps it on me. Because you have them, you just don't open up as much. Because like you said, she can't fix it.
Right. It's got to get fixed. So if she can't start typing on the computer and figuring it out, then it doesn't change the fact that they've got to fix it.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, that's one thing that we've done better about. You know, you've opened up about your work more and stuff like that. Because again, even though I still tell people to do spreadsheets, I know more about it, and I'm still not able to fix it or really give you any advice except for, you know.
But it is very specific too. It's like oh, he works in insurance, and it's like, oh, State Farm. Like,
I know it's not State Farm.
I know, but that's like everyone's like, oh, that's what you do.
It's like trucking, and then you went to health.
Yeah, I do a lot of stuff, but it's very complex at times, and so it's very hard to kind of quantify into a conversation. But
I think it also, like I said, the more you can learn about your partner, especially about their everyday life, the closer you'll be to them. So, you know, when you started letting me know about stress at work, or I let you know about stress at work, like the way you were I gave you an opportunity to be a better spouse, to be a better parent to me, because I was communicating that. Like if you had a hard...
With you, not to you. You said parent to me.
Oh, sorry. Parent with me, whatever. A better spouse to me and a better parent to our kids. You know, that opportunity came because I was open about it. You know, if, you know, like even though we have, you know, different roles and I do keep a lot of the house, you know, if I'd had a really rough day at work and I talked to you about it, like okay, well, let me handle dinner, honey. Yeah. Like let me go wash the kids. Like you just sit and relax or whatever, you know. And if you had a hard day, I would be like, the dishes. Did I not tell you the dishes this morning? And you sat here all day long, you know, because you work at home and you didn't do the dishes, you know, but you would talk to me like, you know, hey, I couldn't. I was on this call, got yelled at for like 4 hours. Like, you know what? Dishes don't matter. What does matter is what you need right now. And so it gives us opportunities, because if not, then we're assuming so much stuff. And like I said, if men struggle to be vulnerable and we struggle with fixing stuff, like, and we're not communicating about it, like we're going to butt heads.
Yeah, I think men's emotional vulnerability is something that they have to personally address, but it's something that like all men essentially have. Yeah. If you don't struggle with some like level of holdback on emotions, then you're probably the one everybody makes fun of. If we're just being honest, because you're probably crying about everything. But yeah, I think it is tough, and you know, for us. Like I like personality tests because I'm like a sociology nerd, and so I think we've taken some and we score like in categories that would be completely incompatible because we're like the same thing. Like every time we take one of these, we end up in the same category, which is like the worst possible thing for a marriage. And
I don't know if, like I said, we never did a lot of these when we were first together. So I don't know if maybe because we've spent so much time together, we've started to be more like each other.
I don't think that's necessarily it. I think because we're still very, very different, and we have very like outside of like pickleball and our kids, like we don't do any of the same things.
We don't have any. We like to read just different genres.
Just completely different things. Like, not even in the same, literally the same world.
Yeah, I think that what gets us in trouble in our relationship is we're both leaders. We're both stubborn, and I don't know. I mean, not really now anymore, but we like to always be right.
Yeah.
Because that's a leader quality right there. So that's where we would butt heads a lot.
It's not a good quality in a leader.
Yeah. Well, you want to do what's right.
You want to do what's right, but
yeah,
you don't always think you're right.
Well, I'm thinking about in arguments, though, like, that we've had, like, we each want to be right, so we're going to keep arguing our side. But that, nobody wins, and you shouldn't really do any kind of argument to, like, win. It's to what's the best and what's going to be the best for our relationship and things like that. So, but yeah, I think our personalities clash a little bit.
They do, but it's interesting. So, like, for us, something that I think we do better now than we've ever done in our relationship probably is that we communicate, like, we're intentional with time and we communicate the need for it better than we've ever done. Like,
well, you're really bad with time.
You're
better now. I think you're more conscious now.
I pay attention to the time more than I used to.
He used to be like, hey, I'm gonna go play disc golf at 2:00 at 12:05. Hey, I gotta get going to disc golf. I'm like, you said 2. I'm like, that's 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then I would be like, oh, how long are you gonna be? He's like an hour. So 3 hours later, here he comes. And I'm like an hour. Like, just tell me 3 hours.
Well,
you were so bad with time.
But I think that's what I'm talking about. Like, now, it's not even so much. I think I was looking forward to going to the course so much that, like, everything else was like, gotta get through this thing and then I can go to the course. Yes. Because, like, in my mind, all I wanted to do was go practice or go play. And so that was like, I just gotta go. I gotta go play. And so I would leave and I would play all afternoon because I just wanted to be out there and not pay attention to what time it was. But now, like, and I think having a baby, a little one, changed that a lot because it's like, hey,
you couldn't be going along.
Well, I also don't want to.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't want to be with y'all before, but it's like, you need help because you can't get anything else done.
Kids make you lose a lot of like, I guess, like, selfishness or, like, selfish desires.
Yeah, it should.
Because kids come with sacrifice, especially when they're young. It comes with sacrifice. And also, like, you have a new part of your family. Like, when we were first together, we spent all our time together, like, for, like, the first couple of years. I was like, but then, you're like, oh, it's just, now I'm gonna go do my own thing, and then we'll come back together. Like, when you have a new baby, it's like you got a new family member, so you spend a lot of time with them.
And Hassan is older, and he's been older, so, like, he has things he does on his own, or he'll just go with me sometimes, or, like, so it wasn't the same. Like, he was already pre-cooked into teenager, so, like, he already comes with teenage stuff and, like, wants to hang out with friends and do things like that, which is great. But that also means I don't have to account for his time in the same way. Yeah. But yeah, I think that now, like, I think about I coached a class Saturday and we went and got coffee before, and, like, used to, we'd have gotten our coffee, we sat there for like 5 minutes, and I've been like, oh, it's time to go, I gotta go. Because I've been looking forward to coaching and to doing that thing. But this time I was very comfortable just to sit and talk and hang out. Like, I think being present in the moment with your spouse, even if you're talking about something stupid or just silly, like, it matters in the end, because you're part of the art of communication is developing it, and part of developing it is training
and I think, the more, like, when you talked about vulnerability, like, you get more vulnerable the closer you grow together. Like, the closer that the more you start sharing, the more you start being intentional with your time, which we talked about in a few episodes ago, it becomes easier, and it becomes, like, second nature to talk. And I think that those moments become more precious and more desirable because you're like, oh, I'm not just like, oh, not that we didn't, like I said, it sounds like we, like, didn't enjoy our time together, but again,
we didn't value it.
We didn't value it because, like, oh, she'll be there when I get home, or like, oh, we'll have dinner together, like, oh, we'll go to bed together, and things like that. But now it's like, no, we only have this much time together, so we're gonna make it count.
But there are times too, I think, for us, because we do so many things separate that like, we also are oddly comfortable with, like, being apart. Too, so I think that's
we're not codependent.
No,
at all.
But that's like, but I think that's good because training the two sides of that, like, knowing that this communication and when we are together to be intentional about it, is great, that allows you to go and to accomplish the things you want to do and to spend the time doing the things that you enjoy, which is part of it. But I think for this conversation, we're talking about communication in general. If I was to boil down some like keys to how to help develop this, I think one, open and transparent conversation with your spouse is huge.
Yeah.
Like, don't have something that you're hiding from your spouse, because that's going to stifle communication in all aspects.
And I think that both genders are guilty of doing it. Like, where you talk about with men, they don't want to be vulnerable, and so it's hard for them, so they keep it to themselves. I was like, where women, we don't really hide it, we kind of mask it behind like, oh, I'm fine, or like passive aggressiveness, or just like waiting for you. I know that I was trying to think of one that I did, like when our baby was younger. It's like, oh, do you need me to help? No. As I'm juggling like 25 different things, dinner and laundry and the baby and all this, do you need me to help? And I say no, and that's all that you hear.
You said
and
no.
I'm like, again, I think it's because, at least for me, I don't want to have to ask. I just want you to know. And that was one thing that I had to still struggle to get over. And I'm like, as long as he's known me, and like he can literally see that I'm holding a baby, I'm making dinner, like how can he not see that I need something? And it wasn't until I was like, hey, if I'm doing more than 2 things, I need your help. And he was like, okay, yeah, just tell me what to do. And then that's when I had to be like, why am I not asking? Why do I feel bad asking my husband to do stuff? But then I get mad when I don't ask him, and he should just know. That was one of the, and I hear a lot of that from women, like, well, how does he not know to do this? How does he not know this is what I mean? And I was like, because we're different genders. I would know what you mean.
But it boils back down to my first thought, and this is the point I would say in like my tenets of communication is, it's on the communicator to get that point across. And so if you're not willing to say, hey, do you need help? Yeah, can you go do this?
Yeah, which I do now. I feel like I do a lot better.
And I think that's a key to having good communication between you and your spouse, because without that, the guessing game is frustrating. And it's frustrating on both sides, whether you think it like in your mind.
Well, because like I said, I'm assuming that you understand, and you're just ignoring it.
But that's not what's happening.
But that's not what's happening. I was like, but again, I'm overwhelmed. I'm frustrated that you're not getting it, but yet I'm still not being clear about what I need, in that moment.
Yeah, and so I think...
So it doesn't bring us closer.
Yeah, but that's a key for, like, I don't care if you're communicating with your spouse. I don't care if you're communicating with your kids. I don't care if you're communicating to a large group of people.
Yeah.
Like, the person who has got the microphone, the person who's making the point, they're the ones who are responsible for communicating that point. Yeah,
one I think about in parents, and I've been guilty of it, I'm sure, is when you tell your kids, do it again. Yeah. But you say it with a tone like, do it again, and I'm going to take this away. Do it again, and you're going to get a spanking. But what do our kids hear? They hear, do it again. Yeah. I was like, even Hassan, who's 17 years old, and I'm sure we said that to him, when he was, 13, 14, 15, and he would literally like, okay. Yeah. It's like, how do you not understand my tone of voice? And he's like, because I'm a teenage boy. Right. Like, but again, that was our fault. Like we said, if you do it again, ... Now do it again and see what happens. Like you said that a lot. See what happens.
But third thing I would say, so be honest and open and transparent with your spouse. Communicate clearly with your spouse, but communicate timely with them as well. Yeah. Whenever you don't communicate what you need timely, those things begin to build. Yeah. And that resentment and that lack of communication, and which is not helping but feeding that resentment, begins to build and build and build until something small becomes a huge deal. Yeah. Like if something's bugging you, or you need help with something, or if you're, I don't know, whatever they may be, tell them then. Yeah. Don't wait. Like if you're dealing with something stressful at work and you need that, support from your spouse, tell them what's going on, because that stress is going to build and it's going to boil over into other aspects of your life. Yeah. If you're juggling 3 things and your spouse is sitting on the couch, like tell them what you need and tell them immediately. Yeah. Because you're going to build resentment in the fact that they didn't get your, I'm fine, like whatever that is. Like, that's not going to help anyone. It's just going to frustrate everyone. And then the next little thing is going to become a big deal.
Yeah.
Because you didn't communicate it timely. Yeah.
No, I think that's. I was trying to think of other examples.
My favorite. This has nothing to do with my like tenets of communication, but my favorite thing that Montana will do is
it's like a real favorite, or is it?
It annoys the crap out of me.
Yeah.
It's the most annoying. The most annoying thing Montana does.
Oh, the most. I would love to hear it.
I'll say something like,
I thought it was the dinner.
No, that's the most annoying conversation, but this is the most annoying thing. This happens way more frequently. I will say something like, hey, someone asked me to go play golf after work. Is it okay if I go?
Okay.
She will respond with, okay.
That's okay. Like, you can go.
The question is a yes or no question. X person's asked to go play golf at 4 o'clock. Can I go?
Okay.
No, it's a yes or no question.
I don't get that. I just say okay means yes.
No, yes means yes. Okay does not mean yes.
When would okay mean no?
It never.
Give me an example when okay would mean no.
No.
Do you want ice cream? Okay.
This is not clear and concise communication.
It's not.
Can I, whenever you text me okay, do I get all of this? My text message? No, I get okay.
I can start sending emojis. I say that, okay, why? That's okay.
By the time you search for an okay emoji, you could have just typed 3 letters.
I don't know. Because I feel like yes means like, yes, I want you to go. And okay, it's like, if you want to go, you can go. But if you also want to come and see me, that's fine.
The answer is yes or no. Is it okay? I will make the decision if I want to come home or not. I've asked.
You're always going to play golf.
Exactly. But I've made that decision that I'm going to go if you say yes, it's okay. No. This is what we're talking about.
I didn't know that woman. I knew that it annoyed you. I didn't know this was a hindrance on our communication.
It is the most frustrating communication point in our marriage. And it's always the same thing. It's like, hey, I'm gonna go get something for lunch. You want it? Or hey, can I go over here for lunch? Okay. Like, it's a yes or no question. Can I have it or not?
If it's okay, you can have it.
No, it's yes or no.
Tell me an example when you say okay and it means no. For anything in life.
All of your passive aggressive examples, okay, could be no.
No.
I'm fine. You're
No.
not fine. You're mad. That's not fine.
I'm just saying, if someone asks like, hey, do you want ice cream? And you say okay, what's it mean?
Look,
It only can mean yes. So okay can mean yes. It's not going to mean no in that situation. Oh, am I too loud?
Yes.
Because I'm getting riled up. Well, I think I can fix that. I can just write
Say yes. Oh, hallelujah.
You could also just know that okay means yes.
Oh, hallelujah.
Compromise.
No, it's on the responsibility is on the communicator for expressing concisely their point. Concise would be yes or no.
Okay. Yes. Now it sounds weird.
Okay actually worked there.
Oh, thank you. I knew it worked sometimes.
Yeah. Communication is important. How you're feeling too, I think, is something that I wanted to think about for a sec. Like, if you're mad, recognize that your anger is going to come out whenever you respond to. Mm-hmm. So when I first started working in the corporate world, we used to have mirrors at our desk. And what it was for was
check your hair.
No. So whenever the phone would ring, you would look at the mirror and you would smile. And then you'd pick up the phone.
That's why you have a creepy smile sometimes.
Probably. But the whole point is because when you focus on smiling, then your demeanor changes, your inflection of your voice changes. So you could have just been like screaming at something on the computer and look in the mirror, smile, and be like, hey, how are you today? And like, it changes everything about the way you communicate. And so I think mentally, I don't think you should carry a mirror around to do this probably, but like if you're like frustrated or angry at something and your spouse is like, hey, and you're like, what? Like, smile and then look. Like, that's something I'm bad about for sure, because like I'm hyper focused on what I'm doing.
I think we're both bad. It's just because we're not patient people. So like literally, this just happened tonight when I was like, hey, do you want to give our a shower? Yeah. And then, like, I waited, like, a few minutes. I'm like, okay, you ready to give him a shower? Yeah, I'm about to go. And then I waited a few more minutes. And I was going to do the shower. I was like, oh, my gosh, just give me a second. Like,
I was working on something.
You do the same thing, like, if I'm, like, typing something. Or it's usually, like, when we're on our devices. Like, we're trying to finish something or do something or read something. We're just not patient people when it comes to responses. And that's one thing I don't know how we would necessarily fix. I guess either be more patient or just have an understanding that, hey, when your spouse talks to you, no matter what you're doing, you're going to respond.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we haven't quite figured that one out yet, but
I would say that we do need to work through that because we do that. We do a lot of like stuff on our computers and our phones at night, so we do talk while we're working on things a lot, and we do that where it's like the conversation will take 30 minutes when it could have taken like 30 seconds because the other person doesn't respond. Patience. And your inflection and your emotion that comes out in your communication is important.
Yeah, I think also, one of the key things is that if your spouse does something communication-wise that you don't like, you need to talk about it. Because, again, if it's something that's hurting your feelings, maybe they're passionately communicating and you don't like... Because sometimes when you're passionate, your volume goes up, and it could, Zachary, sound like yelling. If you have a very passionate spouse like I have. If you don't respond to that, like, if you just don't like that, talk about it, with your spouse. Because if not, it's going to keep happening because, again, being clear, if they don't know that it bothers you, that it bugs you, that it hurts your feelings, like, how are they supposed to know to stop? I was like, so then you're just building up resentment and anger towards them where you're just assuming they know you don't like it. You have to actually speak it out like, hey, I don't like this, and things like that. We've done that plenty of times, like, like we don't argue in public. That's not what we're going to do, anytime one of us tries, like, hey, we'll talk about it later. Like, we're not going to do this out here. We're not going to argue in front of our kids and things like that. So we've had conversations, we've set boundaries and like, hey, this is how we're going to do this, is how we're going to communicate and things like that. We don't, we can, have some like non-negotiables, some things that you guys are not going to do when you guys are communicating, whether you're arguing or disagreeing or whatever. Like, we're not going to walk out. Like, that's, one thing that, we feel very strong about. We're not going to walk out. We're not going to go to bed and leave this, all these feelings still out. We never mention like separating, or we try not to bring up things from the past. We're not always great about that. But things like, there's some things that we've talked through, like, hey, what do we not like that we do when we communicate, and what should we not do? Like, what's not serving to our relationship to say during a disagreement, during an argument, because again, it's not, there's words that you say that you can take back, but the feelings that it brought when you said that don't really go away. And
the word divorce isn't one that's like allowed in our conversational vocabulary.
There's never going to be any argument worth even mentioning that, so we don't.
I think that goes along with some of the other points we've made, though, like those finalities and those like aggressive like points, like, oh, we'll just get a divorce. Like, when you say things like that, you're saying them out of that anger, you're saying it out of that frustration. You may be saying it out of a lack of communication in the first place, and like maybe the answer to a lot of these problems could just be that you needed to have more open, honest conversation, a conversation audit, communication audit of your relationship. Like, hey, you've said a couple things lately that I don't really like. Here's what I'm thinking. Could we try to fix that? And understand, like, whether you're communicating that or you're receiving it, like, you have to receive it with an open heart.
And I think, communication is one of those things that it's not, you've never reached the end, like, oh, now we're each 100% the best communicators we can be. Like, no. Like, you guys are always going to grow. New jobs are going to happen. New kids, relationships, like, stuff your kids go through, stuff that you go through. Your relationship's going to, as your relationship continues to change and grow, your communication has to continue to even sometimes change and grow and things like that. We go through that all the time where we're like, hey, when we're communicating, you're doing this and it's not really getting us anywhere. Like, hey, you're doing this and I'm not really liking it. I know one recently is Zach, thinks that I repeat a lot when we're having discussions. Like,
you do.
And he's like, you said that point 4 times. Like, I understood it at point 1. And I explained that, well, I feel like you didn't get it. And so then that was one that I had to look at myself like, you know what? I have to trust that I was clear the first time, and he understands what I want. He understands what I need. I have to give him a chance to prove that instead of repeating it 8 more times during that discussion.
Which doesn't do anything but make it more heated.
Yeah, I don't know if Zach remember, because Zach is very once the conversation's done, like, we're moving on and we're gonna do better next time. He never remembers things exactly how they happen, which may just be a man. But one of the things that, you know, that I didn't like in, like, when Zach and I would communicate, I guess it was like a few years ago, it was like the end. Zach would just end discussions. Like, all right, we're done. Like, not like we're done, but like, this conversation is done. And I was like, oh, I still had more to say. Like,
I want to yell some more at you.
Yeah, I'm not the yeller. You're the passionate person. But so that was one thing. I was like, hey, I don't like how you get to decide that we're done. Like, that this conversation is done and we're, you know, moved on. And, you know, he was like, I get that. I was like, because it feels like that in a communication conversation that you had all the power because you just got to end it, and, you know, we got to move on and stuff like that. So that was one that he, you know, that Zach was like, you're right, I get it. You know, like, we should both decide when this is over and things like that. So I mean, like, always looking at your relationship, you know, what can you grow on, what is happening during y'all's discussions or disagreements that is not couple serving, that's not serving your relationship, not serving your relationship with God or with each other, you know, kind of just always examining that, how you guys can grow. Yeah,
I just did a message last Wednesday called The Passionate Pursuit of God's Kingdom. And, you know, I think that this transposes to everything in our life, but especially in the way we communicate with our spouse or with our family, our kids, or our clients or whatever, you know, in that, when you passionately pursue the kingdom of God, all the other things in your life that are not important, that are not a part of that development and that focus on that pursuit of Him, fall away.
Yeah.
And, you know, in your conversations, if you're passionately pursuing God and His kingdom, then the faults in your communication will begin to kind of flake away as well. It'll prune back because you're focused on God first. That's going to trickle into your relationship with your spouse, your kids, into your job, and into your clients. And so focusing first on, above all the tenets of communication, above all the skills and abilities you can learn, if you can focus on Him and you passionately pursue Him and you put Him in the center of your marriage, Him in the center of your house, Him in the center of your life, then a lot of things are going to change. Yeah,
and that's one of those things that I pray and read some Bible scriptures throughout the day, but I do my main, like, studying and praying at night. And that's because I've found that no matter what the day is brought, like, whether I'm bitter or upset or happy, or we've had a disagreement, like, when I go to God, when I go to the Bible, when I pray, all of that kind of lessens, and I'm like, all right, like, you know, the disagreement wasn't worth it. Like, I'm able to end my day with God. Like, everything that happened today is not more important than you and my relationship with God, my relationship with my spouse, my relationship with my kids, and so on. And so it just refocuses everything from all the feelings and things that have gone on that day, which I think could, the same way for, like, in the morning, if you do your main Bible study and stuff in the morning, could set you up for the day. But I like to just, like I said, I do some prayer and, you know, Bible reading throughout the day with my main things at night, because I just want to make sure that I end it with God, and that, you know, it centers me back. Like, hey, was this stuff that happened today, was the choices you made really the best that you could have done, or really worth it? That's good. Yeah. I think the same thing works in the morning. If you start your day, then you're centering yourself in the beginning of the day on your relationship with Him, and everything else kind of filters through that lens as you go throughout your day, and that filters your communication. So, but I don't think that we've got it all figured out. No. You know, like I said, there's still things that we struggled with tonight, but I think just, you know, going back to just being open, honest, and with your spouse, with communication, learning, you know, being able to receive the criticism and things that y'all can work on will only benefit you. And again, you'll grow closer together as you're more vulnerable, as you continue to talk to each other. Yeah. So, a couple keys of communication with your spouse. First, be honest, open, transparent with what's going on. Communicate clearly and concisely. Ladies, that means you. That means quit with that passive aggressiveness. Guys, that means you. Quit hiding behind your false emotions and communicate and your work, concisely.
timely. Communicate timely. Don't let things fester. Let things sit. And every now and then, just do an audit. If you got something that's frustrated, sit down and have a calm, concise conversation about what's going on, what you're feeling. I think you'll see a major change and a major shift in communication. And the most important of all, everything in your life should point to God. And so that pursuit of Him, set your sights on God, follow through with that pursuit of Him, and a lot of these things will begin to work themselves out along the way.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's good. Like, greatly communicated, love.
Thank you. I like to think I'm a decent communicator. Anyway, so.
You didn't compliment me back.
You're so lovely, dear.
See, this is one of those communication things we got to work on. If I give you a compliment, you should give me one. At our next audit.
And I'm going to bed. So I hope you have an incredible week, and we will see you next week.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night.